Welcome to my channel, Ace Your Style, Evolve and Involve. Hello everybody, I hope you had an amazing Diwali and you were safe around with all the pollution. I'm so sorry for being out of action on account of my health and also remodeling, but hey, I'm back with a bang. I'm really excited because that's the best place to be, behind the camera. So today's video is one of my favorite. Why? Because I've been talking about this on LinkedIn, I've been talking about this on Instagram, posting thoughts on this particular topic, and the reason why I like this topic is because it has changed my life personally as well. Earlier, I was aversive to it, but later on I realized this is the only way forward, and this is the best move forward for any advancement and any improvement. Yes, the topic is none other than feedback. Now, when we talk about feedback, there are a lot of thoughts which come to our head. Is it pleasant? Is it something that has disrupted the environment? Have I done something wrong? Is the person's going to be giving me feedback? Is he or she's going to be generous? But at the same time, do we realize that it's not just a one-way street? The person who's delivering the feedback and the person who's receiving the feedback, they both have to be on the same page. Both have to understand that there's a way to convey the medium and there's a way to accept the medium. Unless this happens, the feedback process is going down the drain. It's going to be a waste of time and breath for both feedback which has been delivered by the sender and also the person who's actually on the receiving end. More often than not, we see that people tend to insult through personal means by getting personal, but I feel that the best way we can actually curb through the problem is actually communicate well, communicate through the message and not forgetting the agenda. So in this video, we'll be discussing about what is feedback, when to give a feedback, how to give a feedback, and when to avoid giving a feedback. Now, these elements will actually combine the efficacy and the relevance of feedback. So let's take a deep dive and understand all these important facets. What is a feedback? Now, feedback occurs when there's a disruption in an environment. If there's a product or a service which has been launched and that has not fared well, a stakeholder who is complaining, or a customer who wants to give a survey on some part of product line which he or she is not satisfied about. Now, that's a negative part of it, but the feedback is also positive, because people always think that feedback is always about negative news. It's always about committing to the moment where something has gone wrong. But no, not every time feedback is wrong. That's again a misconstrued concept, because people think criticism is exactly the same as feedback. Now, feedback actually flows in very even direction. It's the most beautiful process for self-improvement and also an instant dose if something needs to be rectified. Now, in the next part of the video, we'll be discussing about when to provide a feedback, how to give a feedback, and when to avoid giving a feedback. When to provide a feedback? Now, that's a good question. Now, feedback ideally should be constructive and should be agenda-centric. It should not be looking at the individual, but what has gone wrong in terms of product or service. We always tend to think, okay, this is where we have gone wrong and this is where the person needs to be improved. But then, are we really solution-centric? Because if we are, that's where the feedback should actually arrive. If there is a performance issue, that's when we give a feedback. If your direct report has actually met his or her goals, that's again a feedback in a positive way. If he or she hasn't met the goal or hasn't performed to a level where it's meant to be directed in her KRAs or his KRAs, that's again an opportunity for feedback. You should sit with that person, you should deliver the expectations, you should reiterate the plan to him or her, whosoever is a concerned party. At the same time, if we are trying to launch something and the stakeholder or a customer has actually given their surveys, and whether it's positive or negative, that's again a part of the feedback process, because voice of customer and voice of stakeholders is an important part for improvement plan. So this is where we should be thinking about when to provide a feedback. We've discussed about when to give a feedback. Now it's time to how to give a feedback. So first thing, we should start with a positive experience. We should not start completely full guns and blazing and go with the agenda that I need to ram this person down. No, then you'll lose the entire relevance of the feedback. It needs to be constructive. It needs to be directed towards improvement. It needs to alleviate. It needs to make sure that the person who is receiving a feedback should come out strongly and will be turning out as an asset for you. Rather than setting examples wrongly, we need to make sure as people managers who are in capacity to deliver feedback, people should fall in love with the way how you communicate with them. And they should always be ready to gracefully accept your feedback. And like I said, it's a two-way street. So we need to make sure the person who is receiving it should also be graceful about it. So first thing, when we talk about how to give a feedback, it needs to start with a positive experience. And then we need to break down the agenda of complexity. Second, it needs to be timely. Anything which is old and that's stale will lose the relevance. It'll fade the importance of the feedback. At the same time, we need to make sure that your feedback is specific. It's not wasting anybody's time. You need to basically direct the right chord where the actual root cause has arrived. If you're completely off track, then there's no point giving a feedback. It's a waste of time for both the person who's receiving it and also for you. You might have, end up doing something better. Okay? And most importantly, when we talk about how, there's another key element to it, that follow-up is very important, because follow-up leads to move towards continual improvement plan. We follow up with that person. How are you doing? How is the performance? Are we having enough monitoring and tracking measures? So that's how we deliver feedback. Okay, we've discussed about when to give a feedback, how to give a feedback. Now, there are also times when we are supposed to think about and reflect when not to give a feedback. Point number one, when we are extremely angry or when we're feeling extremely emotional, that's when we should refrain not to give a feedback, because that's where things can go haywire. That's where things can go wrong. The person would feel that you're personally attacking them, even though your intent is not to. Cool down, relax, breathe. It's a process. Never give feedback when you're too angry or when you want to dump your feelings. Feedback needs to be respectful, agenda specific, and at the same time, in due for improvement. The person who you're delivering feedback is an asset, and you want to prepare the asset for the better course. Okay? Again, I've realized in my career, when I was receiving feedback or when I'm giving feedback, I always make sure that I have enough specific time for the person. I'm not rushing to a meeting. I'm not basically doing something multitasking when I'm giving a feedback to someone. My attention should be undivided. I should invest time with that person whom I'm actually delivering a feedback to, because that will lead to the next plan, which is coaching. So make sure you make time and you're not rushing into your feedback as well. That's where things will go wrong. Okay, I hope you all liked the video, and if you really find merits in this, please start applying in your personal and professional life. I'm sure this will help you out. It has helped me thoroughly. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and do like, share and subscribe and pass it to your friends and family. I look forward to your love, and like I always say, thank you so much for watching my videos.